Hello, we are live on air. Welcome. This is DawgsCentral live on a Tuesday night. Can barely keep up with my days right now. I am Graham. That is Dustin, aka 704 Dog on Twitter.com. We are here to answer your questions. Got a lot of great Dog Central subscriber questions loaded up tonight, and we also will have an eye on the live YouTube chat. So if you see this and you want to get something in, go to youtube.com/Dog Central, and we can get your questions on air there. Dustin, how are you doing this evening?
Doing good, man. It's been a while since I've been on here, so I'm looking forward to spending some time with the subscribers tonight.
Yeah, it's great to have you back on air. If you don't know Dustin, he has been, you've been helping Jason with the recruiting stuff for years and years, and you stay really plugged into that world. So good to have someone with some recruiting expertise on here this week. And yeah, you're like lifelong Bulldog as well, correct?
Yeah, season ticket holder for about 10+ years, so
There you go.
definitely probably more of a fan than a contributor on the site.
Hey, those lines can be blurry sometimes. So,
Yep.
all right. Well, let's get rolling. Like we said, we've got a lot of questions. We're going to start out with this one from June Recruiting Fearmonger. Who do you think steps up on the DL this year? I feel really good about Michael Williams and Nazir Stackhouse, but after that, we need a couple more guys to step up. This has been I think a large topic of discussion. I've seen a lot of folks kind of wondering about the interior of the defensive line on Dog Central, and I think a lot of that angst has come from Bear Alexander transfer. But do you have any initial thoughts? Like, are there any guys that you feel like are primed for a breakout year?
I would say compared to last year, I think he kind of took a step at the end, but I think TID probably would be my one guy that I could see the upside there. I know the pictures and videos of how he's been transforming his body, getting a little bit leaner, probably some good muscle on his body as well as he went down. I think he's probably one to take a step. I also, from just looking at the depth chart, I probably think one that probably just from his work ethic and his attitude on the team for being a leader, I think Christian Miller probably could be a guy that probably benefits really well from the transfers out that we had. So those probably the two guys I can see taking a big step from last year that was on the roster.
Yeah, I like both your answers. I like that you brought up Miller just because I think he gets kind of overlooked sometimes. I mean, he was a highly recruited player, but he wasn't like a superstar recruit. And every time he got into games last year, he played well. He played really well. I mean, you look at some of his, he only played sparingly, but he did some good things when we saw him against Samford, and I think we saw him a couple other times in mop up duty, and he definitely popped out. I think Warren Brinson's one of those that he's been a good pass rushing DL for a long time. Definitely been one of those rotational pieces, but you see him flash. He's got good athleticism, and if he can do some more of those things in the interior, like more of that kind of two gapping type stuff, and really step it up from a run defense standpoint, I think he could have a really large year and play a lot of snaps. Play 40, 50 snaps a game up front if he's able to hold his own on run defense. One of the guys that I'm looking at a lot is actually, I'm very curious on Jamal Jarrett and Jordan Hall, like those bigger bodies that are, because I mean Georgia's got, I think, a lot of like good three technique defensive tackles that can rush the passer. That's not a problem. The question is going to be, do they have a guy to play like true nose tackle. And both those guys have the body size to do it. Jordan Hall probably came in a little more ready in the spring. We heard a lot of buzz about him in the spring, but I do think that Jarrett, another guy we've seen a lot of body transformation stuff, a lot of talk about that. And even if they could just get like 12 to 16 snaps a game out of him next year, occupying some double teams to free up those linebackers, I think it'd be a big deal.
I mean, I probably see the projection for him on the way he probably plays during the year is probably going to be something similar to Bear Alexander. But I just think with our recruiting, I think Kirby's doing a good job of recruiting guys that are probably going to stick with it, has really good attitude. And just from the interviews I've seen with him and Jordan, I think they're two guys kind of like Christian. I think they're probably going to put in the work and probably be more patient when it starts at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to transition us to this question from late start. And just because it's along the same lines, it's about the run defense in general, but shutting down run, hallmark obviously a Georgia defense. I thought it was interesting. There was an interview that Chaz Chambliss did with the media pool this spring, and he got asked about just playing for Georgia and some of those things, and he made the comment basically of like, well, the number one rule is like nobody runs on us. We don't let anybody run on us. So the question basically is, without Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, Robert Beal, do you expect a significant drop off in the run defense?
I mean, I don't see anybody really replacing Carter. I think Smith was a freak athlete. I think his leadership is probably going to be the one thing you're going to miss more so there. But if you kind of look at Darius Smith, Marvin Jones Jr., it's just really, really hard to play as a freshman for a bunch of reps. Now, I know we're pretty deep on what we play, 2 and 3 deep on the defense, but I think those two guys could take a good step forward. I'd also say Damon Wilson. I think that he could be one that could really help you early on, just like Jordan Hall can be. So, I mean, I think Kirby, he is really in good hands with him on the defense. I think he'll play their strong suits, like you were saying, not having as much nose help. I think that he'll be a little bit more selective on the packages that he uses. But overall, I don't really see a drop off too much in that area. If you want me to be honest with it.
Yeah. I think you're right about Jalen Carter. You're not replacing a Jalen Carter, but you do have Nazir Stackhouse, and I mean, I think he's been kind of underappreciated and underrated. He played 186 run defense snaps last year, which Carter had 119. So he played 3 more games than Carter, played more snaps than Carter. He had the second highest run D grade on the team, which was 80. Highest was Jalen with 91.2. Obviously, that makes sense, right? But I think Stackhouse is a really good run defender. Like, that's not the question on him at all, in my opinion. So I think they'll be fine with him. The edge is going to be interesting because those bodies that you named, there's a lot of those 6'5", 6'6", kind of leaner, more prototypical pass rush type guys. And so I'm curious to see how Georgia plays with the jack linebackers this year, just because Robert Beal was a good player, and I'm not trying to dog him or anything like that, but in truth, he was not an exceptional run defender. He was fine, but he wasn't great. So I wouldn't be super worried about replacing that production. Nolan Smith, yes, you're not going to find too many like 240 4 guys that are going to 2 gap like that. I don't know. You look at those kind of edge defender guys, and the one that might have the best chance of being the most Nolan-esque is probably Jalen Walker. We saw him, play a good bit down the last third of the season. So
And
we'll
that's
see.
why I think that Jalen Walker and Darius Smith are probably going to be a little bit more important because they're going to be those type of guys that can flex out and take a tight end in coverage. They're really good athletes. I think kind of like Darius Smith. I'm not saying he's the exact same athlete, but like your Adam Anderson, a guy that can rush the passer, but also can take someone in the slot if he needs to.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree with you there. So moving on. I'm going to stay with the defense here. With Mondon out to start the year, Smile Mondon, inside linebacker, All-American candidate. With him out to start the year, who fills that role and what is his timeline? So I want to clarify. This is from David J. I want to clarify this question. Mondon, didn't play in the spring game after having a foot injury the week leading up to G-Day. I don't know what the timeline is going to be for him, honestly. I think it's too early to tell. Foot injuries are really tricky, especially in football. And, I don't want to speculate. I do think there's a good chance he maybe misses a little bit of time early in the season. Maybe he doesn't. I don't know. But in the universe where he's not ready to start game one, I do think it's an interesting question of who plays that inside linebacker position because you've got all sorts of candidates. That room is so stacked with guys. And everyone talks about CJ Allen and Raylan Wilson, two, 1-2 top linebackers in the country this past season coming out of high school. And I think Allen's probably a little bit ahead of Wilson right now, but Xavier Sori looked really good on G-Day, and athletically, I think he's, a little bit next level, right? And then there's Lightsley, right? Like we heard a lot of good stuff about him all spring as well.
Yeah, I really can't add. That's pretty much the whole depth chart there, so I can't really give you an intriguing name outside of those. But you mean, I know we recruited Jalen Walker as a middle linebacker, so he might be that guy that's probably in your Tyndall role at the beginning of the year in some of the reps.
That's a good point for sure. Yeah, and I mean, I think we did see him in spring. He was out, but it did come out that he was kind of like meeting wise. He was sitting in with both the inside and outside linebackers. So it's hard to imagine in a time where they're going to be short on bodies at inside linebacker, but
Rich problems, I guess, right?
Yeah, exactly. But hey, yeah, maybe we do see him.
And I don't think the schedule really opens up to like the fourth game. I can't remember it, but I mean, we have time with Munden to not really rush him.
Right.
I mean, wouldn't see him come in before then, unless they want to get him one game in before that.
Yeah, I think the question is like, do you want him back for the South Carolina game, right? Which I think was that third week of the season, second week of the season. Let's see. Third week of the season. So yeah, I think you want him back for that. Just because 2 weeks later you got to go on the road to Auburn, and you kind of want him to see some SEC level competition before that happens.
Yeah, he's probably if you look at it realistically, probably in practice he's probably getting more reps, real reps for what he's going to be facing. So, and you know how Kirby is. I mean, he's not going to play people that aren't playing full speed and have a full week of practice. So, you could see him not having any game reps and playing by week 3.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. That's a very good point. So this is an interesting one, and it's about the changes to OV rules. Do you feel like the limit on official visits that each team can have, combined with NIL and the portal, is changing the landscape of recruiting? I feel like a lot more teams have a lot more commits than normal. The answer is yes, it is definitely changing the landscape of recruiting. There's no doubt about that. But Dustin, I'd love to get your perspective here on
Yeah.
sort of.
So the official visits being limited per team has always been a thing. We haven't seen people use as many this early on. So I don't think the actual official visits is kind of what's pushing that. I think what you're seeing more so is the portal more than NIL. Portal is pushing kids to really be serious about where they're wanting to go and lock in their spots, because a lot of these coaches are wanting to be able to make decisions um, and make roster management decisions on their spots going into December. So I think that's probably what's pushing this era of kids committing in June, and June being the new December. So it's definitely a different. We've never seen this many people. I remember probably a couple of years back, everybody was just freaking out because Georgia's class was missing on a guy here or there, and in June we might have been not even in the top 10. So it's definitely changed. But I can tell you, as someone that covers recruiting, it's a lot less stressful knowing that you're just zeroing in on one or two guys going down the last 4 months of the season.
Yeah, I think it's better for the kids. Just because like you're not playing that game of roulette all the way up to like the 11th hour, where it's like, okay, we might want you if we don't land this guy. Like I think that spots are shaken out sooner. But it is interesting, just like in July, right? Here we are heading into July, but like in the month of June, you're still seeing that same process play out where like high profile kid commits to Georgia at a certain position, and then a guy that is in that same position all of a sudden starts looking around who is maybe trending to UGA. Like we're seeing some of that go on. So I think that the OV limit is a good thing, just because it does require some commitment, like from the program side.
Yep.
And so I think that's healthy, and like I think it's probably good for teams to not lead anybody on, and to play things as straight down the middle with kids as possible. But at the end of the day, like we are gonna, because of that rule, we are going to get to December and November, and we're gonna see kids. We're gonna see a coach get fired somewhere. We're gonna see Florida go 4-8, and a bunch of kids are gonna all of a sudden start jumping ship and maybe end up signing places they never took an OV. And that part does kind of suck, because I do think that official visit experience is an important part of the process.
Yeah, and you can still take it unofficial, so it's not like kids are not going to still be.
Sure.
I mean, there's people doing official visits, and the unofficials are there taking pictures with the OVs. It's just getting your hotel room and all that. And with NIL and all that going on, these kids are going to be able to take a visit just like they're going to be like the same experience of an OV.
Fair enough. That makes sense. So I mean, what do you think in the grand scheme? Do you think this is a good thing or a bad thing? Just not the
Well,
NIL, obviously, but
so as
OV
someone that's covering Georgia, it's not a bad thing. I mean, this is all to me. It's more about the portal. I think NIL is, when we get to where it's more regulated, I think it's really, a lot of the teams are going to be on the same playing field. There's going to be some that are going to be bidding out, but for what Kirby's trying to build, to further a point from earlier, we're just trying to buy kids that are high character guys that can see the value of NFL draft stock. So for us, it's not going to be as bad. But then again, going back to the portal, it's just, you're going to allow Kirby, if he misses on someone, like let's say he doesn't hit a top 5-star recruit. I mean, you can kind of look at our board. We're really only going at mainly high guys for these last two spots. If Kirby misses on that, he's more than comfortable to go in there and try to dip into a wide receiver with a resume in college that he know can be a plug and play. So I really, for for the rest of the NCAA, I think there's 5 to 10 teams that this is really going to benefit, and it's going to move that gap even more. So I think it's really for your mid-tier Power 5 programs. I think it's really a nightmare for them personally.
Fair enough. Yeah, makes sense. All right. I got another interesting recruiting question for you. So, unless you are someone who follow Georgia recruiting very closely, you Williams Nwaneri was in town last weekend, late last weekend. He came in on Sunday after an OV to Missouri. And it feels like that recruitment is starting to trend Georgia's way, right? Like, I mean, I'll show my cards. Like we've been talking about this on DawgsCentral. Like it does feel like Georgia's in a really good place with him right now. If Georgia is to land Nwaneri, do you feel like they are done at the edge rusher position?
So from what we were hearing, 2 spots on edge, unless it's probably like a Dylan Stewart or someone like that. For us, we see it as the 2 spots we want would be filled. So I know Johnson, he committed last week, and a lot of people were trying to say, hey, could if we could be in Stewart, could we process him? I mean, we worked him out and on the spot pretty much told him that his offer is committable. So I do think that the staff is comfortable with having him as a second spot. So unfortunately, I know Ross was someone that we were really going towards, but I think if he commits to us in the next couple of weeks, I think that's probably going to be it for us on the edge spots.
Fair enough. Okay. Interesting.
Now, the other thing I would say is I think one thing that people probably didn't look too much into, but CJ Jackson going to Georgia Tech, when you're trying to predict where they're going to go next week with that decision, I don't think I think that was probably your third option for Georgia, and for him to go to Georgia Tech probably can kind of tip the hands of where Georgia thinks the other edge spot's going to go to.
Nice. Yeah. Good insight. All right. So this is going to be a really tough one for you to answer. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you now, Dustin. Sorry, I'm putting you on the spot here.
Me and Jason talked about this one. So.
I think I was curious. I was actually pretty eager to hear your answer to this. So this is from Savon, also Brooks. Who do you think will be some surprise recruits who will pop up in Athens during the season that we're not talking about right now? And then there's a second part to this question that I'll ask you after you go down that road.
You can take the second one.
Okay.
So on the first one, going back to what me and Grant just spoke about, the classes kind of filling up early. You can kind of look at our boards and see just kind of like check off stuff that you're probably not going to see a surprise commitment. So I feel like for some people, we're always itching for that next recruit. It might be a little bit more boring for people for the next 4 months, but if you go down the line for quarterback, we're obviously going to be done with that. If you go to offensive line, probably in the next 2 weeks, you'll probably already be done with that. Secondary is solid unless someone was the flip out of there. Tight end, we've already got 2. And we feel like Carter Nelson's going to go to Nebraska. So those are pretty much all the ones on the board. Outside linebacker edge, we just covered that. That's done. Middle linebacker, probably be done next 2 weeks. And then running back, the only way I would probably see our board start to like shift somewhere else would be probably if Nate Frazier was to pick somewhere else, which, like last year, obviously there can be surprises out there. So really all that leaves you with is wide receiver. So that might be your spot to where Kirby's trying to maybe flip someone on their board down the end. But going back to what I said, I feel strongly like if Kirby doesn't hit his guys here, he's probably going to go to the portal. The only other ones that me and Jason probably could look on the list for a wide receiver, if Kirby wants to see, is the Isaiah Cannon guy that's committed to Notre Dame. That might be one guy that we're kind of looking to see how he plays his senior year in Notre Dame. We've had Rhett and other people come, and they were kind of on the down low when they visited. It's kind of like that Clemson vibe where they don't want you to visit publicly. So I mean, I hate to say that, but there's probably not going to be too many surprises going down the end.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I think the only way you get a big surprise is if, well, I mean, like, first of all, you look at where Georgia is in this class, and just the number of like top prospects that they're already in on. I mean, you just detailed them position by position, but like just to be clear here, I mean, you go, we'll go to the 24/7 Sports composite. You're in on the number one. You've got the number one player committed. You're in on the number two player. You got the number four player committed. You're in on number 7. You know what I'm saying? Like, you go down the list. Yeah, it's just, it goes on and on. I think the one that like I would throw out there, and maybe it doesn't qualify as a surprise, but look, this is Georgia football recruiting, and people always want what they can't have, and Georgia hasn't had a lot of 5-star wide receiver commitments. So I would say like Cam Coleman, that recruitment seems like it's going to November, December, and that feels like a guy that Georgia still is in on. I don't think that they lead for him or anything like that, but like they're still, I think, active in that recruitment. And so that would be one I think maybe that could pop up on campus and like create some buzz this fall.
In coaching changes, we're in an optimal world where we don't know who's going to do bad next year. And a lot of people, recruits are going to change their decisions when teams start doing bad. So there's certain teams that have really good momentum now, and if they bust out a 6-6 season or don't make a bowl game, they'll be looking around. When you look at Auburn, coaching change, they just got that staff. It'd be kind of hard for them to lose their staff. I mean, Ohio State, Heartland, if he was to leave there, but that's probably where it'd be so hard for me and you to sit here and predict who's going to be leaving what staff.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think you get into early October, some of those things might become a little clearer. But provided that Hugh Freeze doesn't have a hooker relapse, I don't know that we're gonna see.
They do like buyouts down there.
That's true. They are afraid to throw the money. All right, let's move on. Oh wait, I forgot to answer.
Yeah, what was your position group that it's not being talked enough for the team right now?
That will be a strength. I think it's
all
tough.
Pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, there's like their preseason number one team. There's a lot of hype, but I think it would be in the secondary. I think the safety duo that Georgia's about to have with Bullard back there next to Starks is probably, and they've had some really good ones, but like I think it has a chance to be the best safety tandem under Kirby. And I know that's saying a lot, but those guys are that good. And from what I've been hearing from off-season workouts and stuff, I think Bullard looks even more natural at safety than he was at Star, and he was really good at Star. So that's my answer for that.
Draft-wise, you might be correct too.
For sure, yeah.
Then their backup, Guerrero is a backup. You don't know where he'll be. I mean, be kind of natural.
Totally. Yeah, and I mean, I wouldn't be shocked even to see Tyke Smith if they were to do some 3 high looks or something like that. Play,
which they will.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. Looking at you, Tennessee. Where do you see us with Justin Scott and Aiden Breland?
So, with Breland, if you had to pick one or the other right now, I would say Breland, which is kind of crazy. I know people will say, "Hey, well, Georgia doesn't run their state when it comes to recruiting." You're gonna have to look for different places for your needs, but Breland is the number one player in the state of California, so it's kind of crazy the reach that Kirby's had since he's been here. With Scott, it's really going to be a decision for him, and I'm not just trying to act like I'm butthurt or anything about a recruitment, but it's really going to be come down to NIL. If he's looking more to NIL, it's going to be Miami. We do know that his mom really does like Georgia, so that's going to be a battle of son versus his mom probably there. But I think that is some type of decision he's probably going to have to make in the next month or so because if you look at our timelines, those spots can fill up pretty quick.
Yeah, for sure. Jason and I, we talk a lot, but we haven't spoken specifically about Justin Scott in a while. But I would just say, from sources on my end, that it doesn't feel like Georgia's as much in that recruitment as it did a few weeks ago. So I would definitely agree with your answer on that one. So this is about, we're going to move back off recruiting for a second onto the field. Do you think that Ra Thomas eventually gets to start over Marcus Rosemy-Jack Saint or Dylan Bell this season?
I'll let you take that one.
Well, the reason that I think we didn't see Ra on G-Day because he's in the doghouse for some behavioral stuff, but now Rosemy's also probably in the doghouse for some behavioral stuff, so that kind of evens that deal out. Dylan Bell is really, really good, and I think you're going to see a lot of him, but I think at some point Thomas might overtake that and start a game. I don't think it really matters who starts and who doesn't. It's about rotations and who's getting the most snap counts. But I think Ra and Dylan Bell or Rosemy, like the two of those three guys can be on the field at the same time. Georgia really going back to last year, like they've played a lot over the last 2 seasons without a true X receiver on the field. And Rosemy is an X receiver. Don't get me wrong, but it's like Ladd, he's played a ton of outside receiver. He's played more outside receiver than he has in the slot. But like, if they had more big bodies that they trusted, you'd probably see him more in the slot. So I guess point being, I think there's plenty of room for all those guys to get reps, but the separator for Ra in terms of how quickly he's able to get on the field in Athens and how much he's able to stay on the field it's going to be about blocking for him. It's because those other two guys are exceptional blockers, and Rosemy, we haven't seen him burn anybody down the sideline, but he's good in blocking, and he's really, really good over the middle, finding holes in the zone, knowing where to sit down and make himself visible to his quarterback. And so I think that kind of savvy is going to help him. But of the three, it's tough. Like, it's like Georgia brought in Ra Thomas, and then it was like Dylan Bell kind of like flipped a switch and was like, no, y'all aren't about to recruit over me. Like, I'll show you guys what's what,
Yeah, I think the other thing that's probably not good for Ra stock is Lovett operating mainly through the slot with the snaps that he had in Missouri. And if he's in slot for you and you're pushing Ladd out there, it's gonna be less reps for them to go around. I personally think. I could be wrong, and Lovett plays in the outside, but if you look at how he's used at Missouri from the slot primarily, I think that's probably going to hurt the outside reps.
For sure.
Where do you think Arian Smith fits into all that? If you're seeing them operate from the slot, Ladd and Lovett,
I think Arian's still probably. I mean, we might see him in the slot a little more, but he's been a Z receiver his whole career, and I don't think that'll change. And there's that thing that happens where it's like, oh, this dude's short and speedy, so he's going to be a slot guy. But like, Arian is not as twitchy as your normal like high level slot receiver. He's extremely fast, but like route running wise, you're not seeing him do a ton of like quick stop start movement. That might be because he's never been healthy. in fairness
Yeah,
to him.
that's true. That's true. Yeah.
But
So not to get off track, what do you think about Anthony Evans? Do you see where he's kind of splitting those reps by the end of the year with Arian, and do you think he can get to that quick?
I think Yazid Haynes has a better
Okay.
shot at that. I do, yeah. And I mean, it's I think Anthony can really move with the football in his hands, and he did have an ankle issue during spring practice that I don't
Oh,
think
okay.
was widely reported. So it's hard to say what exactly he is. I will say though that I was down on the field before G Day during warmups. He's bigger than I thought he was. Evans. He's taller than I thought he was. So, I do think he could be a really, really good fit at that Z position. But it'll be interesting to see because with the tight end usage, there's been a lot of times over the last couple of years where Georgia doesn't really even play with a true slot receiver for large portions of big games. So, I don't know. Secondary questions. So this is from What You Got, Lauren. We got another two-parter here. Do you think one of Nyland, Green, Dalen Everett, or Julian Humphrey takes a starting quarterback spot opposite of Lassiter and runs with it for the whole season? If so, who's your guess on that being? So basically, I think the question is, I mean, obviously one of those three guys is going to be the starter, but I think the question is which of those guys, will or could start and finish the year with that same position?
I mean, I would just to keep it short and sweet. I would go with probably Everett and showing that Nyland if he has a good fall camp. I mean, he could definitely push them. I don't think Kirby's going to show favoritism there, but if you kind of look where the reps were last year in the spring, I would go with Everett. I just think he's more complete run game and pass game. I would take him with his size and his speed. I would take him over the other two right now.
Yeah, it's tough, man. I like all three guys, and there's things about all of their games that I like. I'll say this: like, I could see a scenario where Nyland Green starts the season and somebody else takes that
Definitely.
job, kind of like Amir Speed and Ringo in 2021. This isn't really the question, but I think Julian Humphrey is going to be a really, really good player. And I kept hearing a lot about him in the spring. And, just there continues to be a lot of good buzz on him. And athletically, I think he's kind of like built differently than a lot of dudes. Again, I think it's the run support piece for him. Like, he's got the body and the frame to do it, but will he consistently do it? Does he get off the blocks? That kind of thing.
And going back to that, it's going to be one of these years. The good thing about not being thrown in the fire with a big matchup like Oklahoma in the first game is you're going to have two weeks. And just like you said with Speed, he was shown out there, throw him into the wolves, and we pretty much knew after a game or two he wasn't ready for that. So
Right.
I think it's good that we had those two games to where you're really going to be able to play both sets of those two. I think they're going to get equal reps the first 2 weeks, all three of them.
I agree. All right. So, second question here is about Aguero. What you got, Lauren? Has got some big secondary things on his mind. I love it. Basically, the question is: heard good things about Aguero as a safety, and that he might be tough to keep off the field, and that is all very true. You heard correctly. Wondering if we see it being Tyke Smith's playing time that he could take if he's taking somebody's playing time. I'll go ahead and say it. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the like, barring an injury to Starks or Bullard. Knock on wood that doesn't happen. We never wish injury on anyone here on DawgsCentral Live. I think that star position would be, that's kind of the safety training spot. It always has been for Kirby defenses. You kind of get in there and show that you can play man to man, and that you're good at getting off blocks and defending the run, and then you can be trusted as that last line of defense. So yeah, I think it would be Tyke Smith's spot that he would take.
So, I guess one question I would ask you on that: do you think when you get into the season, maybe mid season, I know like this is where Tyke Stevenson came in, kind of made a push whenever he was in the program. Could you see kind of matchup specific if someone has a big body tight end or big body wide receiver in the slot? Could you see that kind of be where Guerrero starts kind of making his push? Because it seems like he on the big body guys or tight ends or stuff like that. I mean, not to kind of knock Tyke, but I don't think I'm going to be wanting him up on a 6'4", 6'5" tight end too much.
Yeah, that's a good question.
And this is how Kirby thinks.
Think so. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's yes. Like, yeah, you make excellent points across the board. I think that would be the moment, right? I also would say it could always happen against Tennessee because Josh Heupel. Yeah, well, no, really, that partially, but the thing is that Josh Heupel does the find the duck game where, you know, if he finds a matchup that is working, he goes to it over and over and over. It was Latavius Brini in 2021, and Tennessee scored 10 points in the first 3 drives, picking on that matchup, and Kirby took him out of the game and put Chris Smith at star and moved him down from safety and put Dan Jackson in up top at safety, and Tennessee basically didn't score again until garbage time, right? So I think that is the question is like, does a game come around where Tyke gets matched up on a guy that is just better that day that he can't cover, and then you gotta put somebody else in, or you're gonna get toasted in the same spot over and over.
Yeah, I agree.
This one's a pretty simple one for you. Do you think we will get any commitments this week? You don't have to say who. You can just say yes or no.
I would say go look at Graham's post from earlier today, but I would.
Great answer.
But I would say next week, if you gave me when I was looking at it, if you give me like July 2nd and on, I would give you that week probably be your. I mean,
okay.
I think you're pretty much going to have this between July 2nd and the 2 weeks after that. I think your class pretty much outside of like 1 or 2 people will probably be set.
For sure.
But definitely go look at one of Graham's last tweets. Read that post.
I think that July is going to be like a banner month for Georgia football recruiting. So agreed.
Which is crazy to say when you're at 21, 22 commits, averaging like a 93 average of commits, and still can have a banner week.
Yeah, there was someone in the chat who asked basically what sort of what number we might end up in. I answered you in the YouTube comments, but okay. I think 30. I think it was 30 plus is my answer right now. This is kind of a off season. I'm actually going to do a post on this week. If you're a DawgsCentral subscriber, you'll see it, or if you're not, what a wonderful opportunity for you to become one, so you can read about who's killing it in off-season workouts at DawgsCentral.com. But yeah, question about the Dogs. Any basically who's looking good in off-season summer workouts, strength and conditioning stuff. I'll throw a few names out that have been impressive. One of those is Lawson Lucky. They doing really impressive stuff in 7-on-7. I keep hearing a lot of good stuff about Dylan Fairchild. Like pound for pound, might be the strongest dude on the team right now. And I'll just say that comment I made earlier about Javon Bullard and Malachi Starks maybe being the best safety duo in Georgia history. Some of that was like informed from from conversations I've had over the last couple of weeks. So those guys have been looking
Well, if you're
good.
going to have two leaders, having them at safety is probably a really good spot to have it at, leading your defense.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. I think that's a very good point. That back end is important. You know, when you had Scene back there in 2021, I think his like
Yeah.
maturity and leadership made a big difference.
Count, you could tell the teams were moving different, but
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So this one is interesting. We kind of talked about the defensive front earlier, but Gillis would like to know if there is a group of players along the defensive line that you'd like to see like lined up together since Georgia plays so many, it rotates so many guys. I will say that I think they're very intentional about who they do put on the field together.
I'll tell you too, I want to see playing on the same field, and it might not be early in the year, but Jordan Hall and Michael kind of peaking at the same time.
Yeah.
Those would probably be your two high draft picks playing on the same line. So those would probably be those two. And I wish Damon Wilson was a little bit older. Those would probably be the three I'd want to see on the same line at the same time. But I don't know if Damon's going to get to that point this year, but maybe next year with those three, that's probably going to be nasty.
I like that answer. Yeah. I think my like, and this is just entertainment purposes, honestly, of like dudes I think would, absolutely mash. But Michael obviously at that 4-eye DN spot. And then I would go Jarrett Stackhouse in the middle, and then Marvin Jones Jr. off that edge.
Yeah.
Like I think that'd be a fun combo of size that occupies double teams and athletic pass rushing ability.
Yeah, if he can unlock his potential, I don't know. I kind of see a little bit. He doesn't talk as much as Nolan, but you look at the traits that he has. That'd be one guy that probably could get there. It's just like I said, Nolan is just one of those guys. Just leadership wise, he was just like a coach on the field when you had him out there.
For sure, absolutely. All right, so this is gonna bump it back over to the recruiting side. Do you think that Georgia will take a quarterback in the 2025 class? Or are we going to sign someone that says Montgomery in parentheses or pass until 2026?
I personally, I'm in the boat that will pass in 25 and go to 26 because we obviously know there's someone that is really, really highly touted. It's going to be in the 26 class. I think it splits up Tom, and I think it's also probably good. It shows that you're kind of being loyal to Ryan Puglisi. That's being kind of loyal to you. So I personally think they'll pass. But I mean, you never know with the portal what's going to happen with there. I know I talked to Jason that what would be the scenario be like if Beck was to somehow not get drafted, how that probably would push people out of the program portal wise if there wasn't really a spot to compete for them. So I think that's the only way that you probably see something happen in 25. But if you're seeing Puglisi, Stockton, Rayola, and Vandergriff, to me, it'd be kind of hard to get another
You
guy.
think Vandergriff will still be in the program by the time?
I'm just thinking out loud. If you got
no,
Beck,
I know.
If Beck graduates, I think that Vandergriff, if he stuck it out this long, I think Vandergriff probably has it in his mind that he thinks that he can beat out Stockton. But It just
Mhm.
all depends on how he does if he keeps that number 2 spot this year. I don't know for sure if he can do that, and I think that they're probably gonna be really competitive, and I think the other thing to kinda look there to kinda go on your side of that is I would think about how close Bobo's family is to Stockton, and it'd be really hard for me to think that if it was a flip of a coin, they were really 50-50 how Bobo's not gonna go with Stockton personally. But that I know there's you know, Beck might not even be going to the draft next year, and that's a moot point. Um, but I'm really, really to answer that question, I'm really surprised he's still here to this point. But I mean, what's your thoughts
Yes.
on that?
Uh, well, this is interesting. Dushan Taylor in the YouTube comments, you made the point that Juju might reclassify. There's
There
been
you
some
go.
buzz about that. I'm gonna give it to you guys now. Let's just get this out of the way. I don't think that dude's coming to Georgia. I don't. And everyone's like, "Oh, there's a picture of him and Kirby Smart together in 8th grade." There is, yeah, or 6th grade or however old he was, a long time ago. Um, I just from talking to people and the buzz around things, like I don't think that he ends up at Georgia. Could be wrong. I often am. We're talking about a recruitment that's 3 years away from wrapping up, but that is like the vibe of people that I trust right now.
I will say the only thing to come back on the reclassify part is I have heard that he might be committing super early compared to when people naturally do for the 2026 cycle.
Interesting.
Um, and he has been taking a lot of visits this summer. I think he might have visited Georgia twice this summer.
He was just out of
Um,
USC, I think, last week or two.
yeah, so but I mean that's so far away, and you see all these people like the 25s and 26s that were still after. So it's really hard to predict, but I can see that one going either way.
For sure. Um, yeah, I'm with you there. Take another one from the chat. Corey Williams, what's up with the Jalen Hayward flip rumors? What is up with that?
I think as of right now, I would see him staying in the class if I was going to pick any of the three. Um, I would say
Yep.
Woodyard, but I'm not sitting here saying that I even think that's a 30% possibility. I would probably say that like a 10%. I can't. The reason I would give it 10, 20-ish percent is just because he's taking so many visits, but I'm not really a hater on that because if I was that age, I'd be taking visits too.
Hell
Um,
yeah. Hell
Um,
yeah, dude.
I
You got
still,
some.
I know it's a tangent, but I still can't believe that Clemson gets away from these kids in portal and NIL era, where if you commit to them, you can't visit anywhere else. I just don't know how that still is a thing, but yeah, Kirby's never had an issue with all that. But I do think the whole thing with the guys from Georgia going to the Bama visits, if you go back to committed guys like Nolan Smith and Trayvon Walker and all these guys that would go visit, if they're going to be visiting to a partnering school like a Bama or a Clemson or something like that, you rather them go together. So I'm not as concerned as some other people might be to see those pictures floating around.
For sure. Yeah.
Which I truly think Nolan Smith and Trayvon Walker were trolling Bama the whole time.
Of course. Of course. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say. Hindsight's 2020, right? But or there's kind of revisionist history that happens there after a kid's like die hard at a school for a career. But I think Kirby likes to send some guys over there from time to time that he feels like are locked into.
You wouldn't think after last year Kirby wouldn't be trolling them.
What you mean with Justice?
Yeah,
I mean, it might be all the more
I think
reason
then
too.
with Reddick and that whole situation this year, I mean,
How do you think that turns out?
I would if I had to predict it, I would think he stays in state, but I don't think it's like such a done deal as people think. I think it's really going to be a push and pull. But this is the difference between the Kirby Smart era and the Mark Richt era. And, Mark Richt's a great guy, but we would not be having backup options. We wouldn't have Cole and Jones as backup options at middle linebacker that happened. So I'm more than comfortable to have those. And I personally think that Justin Williams is better than Reddick. So if I'm looking for a guy that's going to go in a room with all those alphas, me personally in the portal era, I don't want someone going in there with Raylan Vincent, CJ Allen, Troy in there in that room, and you're like looking over your shoulder. I mean, you're gonna have to be an alpha to even touch that field in the next 2 years. So I'm more than happy taking Justin Williams and one of the other guys that really want to be here than the guy that's kind of like 50-50 right now, because I can't sit here and tell you that Reddick's going to be touching the field in the first 2 years with the class he had before him.
I mean, I think that's a really good point. Like, if you're worried about who else is coming in the room with you, then you might not be built for it at a place like Georgia.
And that's a terrible class to have in front of you. I mean, those are two guys. I mean, Troy, I really like him. I really like him, but the two other guys I really think can be first-round picks. And Troy definitely could get there too, but like CJ Allen and Wilson are like absolute dudes.
Those guys are going to both be multi-year starters probably.
Yeah. And I mean, like I said, it's gonna set up to where we got kind of like that 3 inside linebacker package like we had on the first national championship run. So
yeah, absolutely, no, for sure. So we got one here. What are y'all hearing on KJ Bolden? I know that he's taken a lot of, taken some visits recently. I had people in my DMs on Sunday night being like, is KJ Bolden going to Alabama? 2 weeks ago, they were in my DMs asking if he was
always going to happen, brother.
To Ohio State. Yeah, for sure. No, and I mean, it's like we just were talking about, like, that's the nature of the beast. You follow the visits and you see a kid posting pictures in that rival team's jersey, and it gets everybody worked up. That's kind of what it's designed to do, right? I think that I still feel really good about Georgia and KJ Bolden, and people are telling me that I should feel good about KJ Bolden coming to Georgia. I just think that he is locked in, like maybe not locked in 100%. I'm not saying it's outside the realm of possibility, but just every time I ask about what's going on with KJ Bolden and whether or not Georgia should be worried in that recruitment, I get told no. And I thought it was pretty telling. He went down to Florida State not that long ago, and after he left there, there was some FSU people that I trust and talk to that were like, yeah, that dude's going to Georgia. Yeah. So
this would be my thing. So out of all the schools in Georgia, he could have transferred to Dylan. He transferred to Beaufort. So, yeah. And then you put 1+1 together with the videos with him kicking it with Dylan throughout pretty much the whole official visit, the first part of June. I mean, you had to think it'd be kind of crazy. You had this #1 quarterback in the nation transfer all the way from Arizona, and he went to your high school, and then you're gonna be like, "Nah, I'm gonna go to Alabama." If you kind of think about that,
we're Ohio State, where Raiola flipped from.
And that's the crazy thing. If you probably look at who's probably second, it's probably Ohio State. So that's why I'm trying to say, people with the Twitter stuff is they'll gotta follow the trends on that stuff.
For sure. Craig, I loved your comments, Craig. Craig's got a deep state Kirby Smart theory here that he's still trolling with Justice Haynes. Haynes is going to opt out midseason and portal back to Athens. So this is the last subscriber question we got, man. Okay. If you guys are in the chat, we'll take a couple more live ones if you have them after this. So this is kind of a fun one. What with the SEC expansion, you know,
Okay.
and the schedule will be coming where we'll actually go see these SEC West neighbors more often. Which venues are you most interested in visiting? And this was from, I think this was from Raleigh Dog. Sorry, I can only get 200 characters in here, so I couldn't get your whole
Okay.
thing. But basically, he was just,
Thanks for typing all this stuff out.
I just copy and pasted.
Okay. I'm trying to think. I don't honestly don't think I'd want to spend time in Texas with their fans. They seem kind of out there.
Mm.
I'd probably rather go to Oklahoma and be person. I mean, it just whatever the punter. I don't know if you watched his YouTube videos, but the punter from Oklahoma that was there for like the last 4 to 5 years, he shows his whole experience. It seems like that's a pretty nice stadium, and it doesn't seem like their fans, other than the Twitter guy. I'm not going to mention his name on here, but outside of
Don't kill
him,
me
they seem like.
anymore, clicks.
I mean, they just seem like they're not too bad of fans, so that'd probably be where I'd want to go. I personally don't want to go to Texas A&M. I know it's a good experience and all, but I just don't
Mm.
want to spend 3 hours with those fans all day just acting like that.
Yeah, no, I hear
That's
you,
just me
man.
personally. That's just me personally.
I think, like from a stadium environment standpoint, I would rather go to. I'd rather go to the OU game. Like,
Yeah,
there's. I think they're more of a real football fan base. Texas. I'd much rather spend a weekend in Austin though. Like, I my first job out of college was in Dallas, which I hated. I did not like living in Dallas. Sorry if you live there. It just wasn't my scene. But I would drive down to Austin sometimes and hang out there, and Austin's a really cool spot. So I think that, that's somewhere that is fun to go for a weekend. Texas football does have like some it's got the history and the big name brand to it, but I think, since the subscriber was bringing up the, like, Baton Rouge is hard to beat, man. I think
yeah, I agree.
I think
I mean, you kind of
LSU at
embrace how
night,
they are.
yeah, and the food, and like, as long as, basically, like, my experience walking around there, if you're in an opponent's gear, is like, you'll walk by and someone will make a joke or talk a little smack to you, and if you don't react poorly,
Yep.
they will immediately, like, bring you in and they will feed you and they will fill you with beverages, and they'll send you on the way fat and happy. So, um, big fan of LSU, and just the environment down there.
Yeah, I loved how they were trolling the Florida fans the whole time. But like you said, the Florida fans don't do a good job of like taking it in. They probably get butt hurt every time they do it.
What's the yeah, exactly. If you're just
The
like,
little Gator chomp, but they were saying I can't even remember what they were saying to them. They did it in the baseball game too.
nice. All right.
What would be your stadium outside of SEC?
I really want to go. Oh man.
See,
Look,
I got mine.
I don't want to
I
go to
think
the big house. I think the big house is overrated. I'd like to see a game at Autzen in Oregon. I think that'd be a fun place to go see a game.
See, I would want to go to Southern Cal because I think we would take over the place. I feel like we would take over all
Oh,
the
you mean
tickets,
for
and
a
it'd be
Georgia
hilarious.
road for a Georgia road
Yeah,
game? Okay.
yeah.
That's different. I want to go to the big house then, or Ohio State, and, like, I want to see that whole kind of clash of
Honestly,
culture
if it was
happen.
outside of SEC, I think the Big House would be the one stadium that would not like let go of their tickets. I think that they would like legit not let us get more than
Really,
10% in there.
I
I
think it
think
would
their
be Ohio.
fans,
I think Ohio State would be harder to take over than
for
Michigan.
real.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, I think with the new
just
scheduling, that it's probably not going to happen ever. Well,
you're.
no. We have Ohio State. I think we do have a home and away for Ohio State, so you're going to get that opportunity.
Yeah, that's in 2030 something or whatever. But All right, we got a couple questions left. Dushan, we already talked about Williams and Neri. Go back to the start of the video. You have a question about Nate Frazier. I still like where Georgia stands with the running back out of Mater Day. How about you, Dustin?
Same here. I mean, anything could happen. I know you visited Bama with how they are with running backs and stuff like that, but I think that's the only one that would kind of shake up our board where we'd have to figure out who they would go to. And they're probably okay with going with two and hit one in the portal if they need to.
For sure. And then Aiden Cruz wants to know about Carter Nelson and Amari Jefferson. Carter Nelson
is Nebraska. And it's about as lock as you can get.
What about Jefferson? Any thoughts there?
I would say Bama. Personally, that's my opinion on that one.
Yeah. I know Jason
saw something funny like Nitro Tuggle or someone. I mean, it would have to be something crazy where we had someone leave our list that we would go into that. But I would think we're second or third in there, but I don't think we're necessarily pressing on him.
Gotcha.
What were you about to say? Sorry, I jumped in on you. What were you going to say?
No, you're good. If I'm not mistaken, I think there's a potential for baseball, with Jefferson. Like, I think that's a factor that's maybe not helping Georgia right now. Just new staff coming off of a bad season. Georgia's baseball program doesn't quite have the panache like Alabama does right now. They just had a decent run to the super regional and all that.
If you're going to take, this is me thinking out loud, I hate saying anything proactive or pro for Tennessee, but if you're going to think about Tennessee for football and baseball, I would think that would be if you're going to be on the East Coast, I think that would be like the best blend of the two. But maybe he's just kind of soured on them on baseball.
Well, it depends. Like, Tennessee's baseball program is so divisive. Like at least the 2021 team was more, or the 22 team was more so than this last 2023 team was. But yeah, I think you have a point. It's also like at Tennessee, I get why receivers want to go to Tennessee because the numbers are sexy and they're gaudy and they're big. I also get why they don't want to go to Tennessee because you're going to run 3 routes and it might not be the best thing for your development for the NFL level, running 40 go routes a game. And like how much does your tape really say if you are busting for a 70-yard touchdown, but you're running past a defensive back who's still looking at the sideline getting a call?
And you saw that in the draft. They didn't get drafted super high for what that production was.
Yeah, and Jalen Hyatt's a freak physically. Like, it's not, he's really athletic dude, but they don't develop as many of those like crossing routes and some of those routes that are like really key to pro football. They're not running there. So, all right, last one, Aiden. Do we get another receiver in this class, in y'all's opinion? I don't. At this point, I think it just depends on who it is, man. Like, I think there's 3 receivers that Georgia, I think, would take right now if they wanted to commit, and those are Jeremiah Smith, who I think they're moving out on, Mike Matthews, and Cam Coleman. And I think, we'll see what happens. I don't think it's necessarily as over for Mike Matthews as some people think it might be, but I don't think Georgia's leading in that recruitment right now.
So, only thing that I would tell you, just kind of looking at the wide receiver board, you're talking about juniors. You got Lad McConkey probably gone. You got Dominic Lovett probably gone. Rosemead's probably gone. You got Arian Smith. He might think that he's gone. So you got 4 or 5, and you're going to have 3 guys on your list right now. And that's saying we're not even portaling anybody. So if those guys are leaving your room, just realistically, and you're bringing in these guys, if you're not going to be a bona fide star, you're going to want to get someone out of that portal. I mean, there's no offense to these guys that are in the high school, but we're going to need actual impact guys next year to help complement what we have. So I think it's just telling to tell you that Kirby's saving that spot to where it's either going to be a bona fide stud, or I'm going to get 1 or 2 guys like I did just this last year to fill the stat sheet, because we're definitely going to need I just think we're going to have a lot of production leaving next year.
I think that's well said. All right. Before we wrap up, quick announcement for you guys. DawgsCentral is got an exciting new partnership that we are starting with our friends at Home Field Apparel. Rocking some right now. This is not just like they have a new drop of Georgia designs that are coming out on Saturday, and I've seen them. They're awesome, but this is not just about like a quick kind of mercenary thing. We've decided to partner with Home Field for the next year. Our subscribers at DawgsCentral, you guys will get 20% off your orders with Home Field. So lots of exciting stuff. They're gonna host some events for us this fall in Athens. Subscribers to the website, you guys will be getting entered automatically into giveaways for free stuff every single week. There's a lot of cool stuff that we'll be doing, a lot of collaboration, and it's just, I think, we're not adding anything to the price of DawgsCentral. It is still the same price that it's always been, but I do think it brings just more value for anybody that is a subscriber that wants to be a subscriber or is interested in finding a pay site to get UGA intel for this fall. Just because if you're going to order $100 worth of Home Field stuff, we're going to save you $20. That's 3 months of DawgsCentral right there. So you're coming out pretty even. So hope you guys will check that out and stay tuned, because you'll see a bunch of those designs and stuff dropping this week. But wanted to mention it here tonight just because I think it's exciting stuff, and we're definitely pumped for it. So I changed the logo up in the top right corner to Home Field times DawgsCentral, because that is the graphic that is going out on Twitter tomorrow morning. So thank you guys for watching. Dustin, thank you so much for being here, man. It's fun being back on the air with you.
Always good chatting with you. Hopefully we can do it some more often before the season starts.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, we definitely will. And yeah, just appreciate all of you that are active in the comments. It makes it a lot more fun when we know people are listening to what we're doing, and you guys definitely help move the show along. And yeah, hope you guys have a good rest of your evening. Might try and do something later in the week, might not. So if we don't see you before, hope you have a good week, but maybe we will. Until then.